An early morning fire caused problems in a Jasper neighborhood. More on what happened, plus Jasper Mayor Terry Seitz returns for this week's edition of Monday with the Mayor, and host Bill Potter is at the Du Bois County 4-H Fair for tonight's edition of Inform. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. A garage fire on Jasper's northeast side caused a few headaches over the weekend. At 4:15 yesterday morning, firefighters with the Jasper Volunteer Fire Department were called to the fire in the 1300 block of North Jackson Street. Jasper Fire Chief Kenny Hogs says a detached garage at the home of Connie Tavis was completely engulfed in flames when firefighters arrived. The fire also spread to a detached building at a next-door residence that belonged to Steve Wampler. The two buildings were not all that was damaged, however. Hogs says a third building in the 100 block of 14th Street also sustained minor damage, and a nearby utility pole also was caught up in the flames. The fire on the utility pole caused wires in the area to drop, which knocked out power to some residents. Jasper Municipal Utilities were called out to fix the pole and restore power after the fire was put out. Hogs says the buildings on Tavis's and Wampler's properties were total losses in the fire. Tavis's building had housed grills and other lawn and garden tools, while Wampler's building had an ATV and other lawn and garden equipment in it. The dollar value of the damage to the other structures is unclear, according to Hogs. Hogs says no injuries were reported in the fire and the cause could not be determined due to the extent of the damage. Allegations of child abuse led to the arrest of a Birdseye man on a serious felony charge. Just after midnight, Du Bois County Sheriff's deputies went to a home in Birdseye after a reported domestic incident and the possible abuse of a child. Deputies found a young girl at the scene who had been battered by 29-year-old John Clark. Clark was then taken into custody and lodged in the Du Bois County Security Center. He is currently facing a level 5 felony count for battery on a minor under the age of 14. Sheriff's deputies say they are continuing to investigate the incident and further charges could be filed against Clark later on. The Du Bois County Department of Child Services assisted with the investigation. Now, Clark was not the only arrest deputies made this morning in Birdseye. 35-year-old Sabina Balu was also arrested after deputies found she had an active body attachment warrant for a Du Bois County small claims case. Police say Balu owed more than $465 in that case. She was also arrested and lodged in the Du Bois County Security Center. With the MidState Corridor now a priority project for Indiana, local leaders are now trying to keep the ball rolling. Last week, the state's Blue Ribbon Panel on Transportation announced the project as a Tier 2 project, meaning that it's slated for completion within the next 5 to 10 years. That announcement was good news for area business leaders, but it also brought new questions, such as how the project will be funded, to the forefront. OFS Brands CEO Hank Menke has been leading the MidState's Corridor project from the beginning. He says funding could take on several different sources, but there is still a lot to be sorted out.
Again, we can't depend on the federal government for funding on this particular project, MidState Corridor. We're going to have to look at county, we're going to have our counties, we're going to have to look at the state side of it and look at a number of different ways, and maybe at the public side, maybe a pro forma tolling. I don't know at this point until we decide the dollar amount and what the state can do.
Menke also says the total cost of the project is still not clear. In all, Menke is excited to see the project become a priority. He also says the economic development that's happening along Interstate 69 in Daviess County is similar to what will happen locally once the MidState's Corridor is completed.
That's exactly what happens, and Owensboro recognizes that. Look they used to be the third largest city in Kentucky. Now they're the fourth behind Bowling Green. Bowling Green sits on an interstate along with the university that's helped them. And it makes, this is what goes on. This is what happens. And so an interstate symbol, and that should be our end game, even though we're going to have to do it in parts and pieces, and that's why it's referred to as the MidState Corridor. And I was just real happy with the fact that we got a Tier 2 designation on that.
The Blue Ribbon Panel prioritized state projects into 3 tiers across 4 different modes of transportation. Those were water, air, road, and rail. Tier 1 projects are recommended to be done within 5 years, Tier 2, 5 to 10 years, and Tier 3 projects are on a 15 to 20-year completion timeframe. Well, you may need to find an alternate route to Washington in the near future if you are currently using State Road 257. Officials with the Indiana Department of Transportation say repair work on the roadway will begin just south of Washington later this month as crews begin pulling up reflectors in the center of the road and start to patch sections of pavement. Now, this marks the second patching of State Road 257 this year. The first one was done back in March. NDOT says potholes in the road began forming over the winter due to the harsh weather that took its toll on roads all across the viewing area. The patching work will not be done until late August or early September, and at that point, crews will be completing a fine mill and seal coating operation. This was also done between Washington and Otwell back in 2011. NDOT says the process will repair the sporadic potholes that were forming, thus giving drivers a better surface to drive on. As always, NDOT is reminding motorists to follow the posted work zone speed limit, use caution, and to consider worker safety when traveling through work zones statewide. Finally this evening, U.S. Attorney for the Southern Indiana District Joe Hogs has announced his resignation. Hogs will be leaving office effective July 31st. The former Indiana Secretary of State did not give a reason for his departure in a letter submitted to U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, though there has been much speculation that he will seek the Democratic nomination in the Indianapolis mayor's race coming up next year. Hogs was originally sworn into office back in October of 2010. He was then unanimously confirmed by the U.S. Senate. Hogs had previously stated he intended to stay in office through the end of his term in 2016. All right, coming up after the break, Jasper Mayor Terry Seitz joins me for Monday with the Mayor, plus your local forecast, sports with Kurt Guxell, and tonight's edition of Inform with Bill Potter. That's all up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Local people watching local people.